Hi, Marissa.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ellie Garrity, and I'm the manager of Alumni Career Programs with the Alumni Association. We're excited that you're able to join us for today's webinar in our Wellness Week series, How to Make Friends as an Adult, with alumna Marissa Franco. This webinar is part of the Alumni Association's Professional Development Webinar Series, in which we hope to provide thought-provoking and valuable content that will help alumni like you achieve your personal and professional goals. We have a lot of information to cover today, but we want you to get the most out of this webinar. So please feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation in the chat box, and Marissa will be taking questions at the end of her interactive presentation. Now, a little bit about Marissa. Dr. Marissa G. Franco graduated with her PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Maryland in 2017. She then started a job as an assistant professor of counseling psychology at Georgia State University, where she worked for 2 years. There, she received a grant from the National Institute of Health to study social support in China and Vietnam. As she dug deep into the research on friendship, she decided to share her research with the world. She is currently writing a book on how to make friends as an adult, which is represented by Avita's Creative Management. She also writes about friendship for Psychology Today and has been a featured expert on friendship for major publications like The Telegraph, Bustle, and Shondaland. I'll hand it over to Marissa to share a little bit more about her experience and to get things started.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be connecting with you all today virtually. Can you see my presentation all right?
Yes, we can see it.
Everything looks good? Okay, great. So let me just minimize this so we can see this. Okay, awesome. So today I'm going to be talking about how to make friends as an adult. Feel free to tweet at me during this presentation, Dr. Marissa G. Franco. Ellie did a great job of introducing me, but I wanted to go a little bit more into my background, how I came to study friendship. As she mentioned, I got a grant to study social support in China and Vietnam, but this topic is also very personal to me. I will say in about 2014, I went through a bad breakup, and I think I took it so hard because I felt like romantic love was the only form of love that matters. And after the breakup, I did this wellness group with my friends where we met up each week and we practiced wellness together. We meditated, we cooked together, we read books in each other's company, and I can no longer deny just the colossal force of love from friendship. And I realized that, you know, whether I was in a relationship or not, I always had love. Love had always been around me and with me. And I kind of realized that there's this sort of larger cultural myopia that happens where we think, you know, there's one relationship that matters and others that are secondary or extra, and I don't believe that. I think that friends can be the center of our relationship worlds, and we can be very happy with that. And that even if we're in a romantic relationship, the research shows us that having more friends makes our romantic relationship better. So that's where I came from, really, to develop my passion for studying friendships and for wanting to write a book on this topic and share more of it with the world. So what am I going to be going over today? I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the myths about friendship that get in the way of us making friends. I am going to tell you exactly how you can make friends. And this is going to be based off of the psychology research that I've read extensively. And then I'm going to tell you how to apply that to your life. So, friends, let's get into it. But how? So, the first myth about friendship that a lot of us might think is true is friendships should happen organically. And when we look into the research on this, we actually find that this belief hurts us when making friends. There's a study of older adults, and it basically found that when people thought friendship was something that just happened based off luck instead of effort, they were more likely to be lonely 5 years later. In contrast, when they thought friendship took effort, they were less likely to be lonely 5 years later. And that was because they were more likely to put themselves out there to make friends, to show up at the neighborhood groups or church or book clubs or anywhere that they can find connection. And so making friends as an adult is something that I think we take for granted because maybe when we were kids, it did happen automatically in the playground. But as adults, it happens less so. As Ellie wrote about in the description of today's talk, the average person actually hasn't made a new friend in the last 5 years. So we need to be very intentional and take ownership of making friends if we want to be successful at making friends as an adult. So my first piece of advice, how do you make friends as an adult? You have to initiate. If you find someone in your life, you're like, that person's cool, I want to be friends with them, then reach out to them and say, like, let's have lunch. I'd love to connect. I'd love to get to know you more. And sometimes you may fear that, like, oh, that's going to be creepy. They're going to be like, oh, that's weird. But actually, most of the time, people are very much flattered when you reach out to them and say that you want to connect. And so to really get into initiating and how it looks like in our lives and how we can initiate better, I wanted to mention this topic of covert versus overt avoidance. And so overt avoidance happens, when we don't show up for events because, we're scared or we're nervous. Like, we don't go to that meetup group, or we don't go to that, this place of worship, or we don't go to the book club, or we don't go to the sports league because we are nervous and afraid about, meeting up with other people. But covert avoidance is when we do show up, but when we get there, we don't engage with people. So I showed up at this meetup event, or I showed up at this networking event, but then I'm just on my phone, texting people. I'm talking to the one person I already know. Maybe I'm at a gathering and I'm just petting the dog all day. And I think we often get the feedback or advice that, like, hey, to make friends, you need to put yourself out there and, like, join a club of some sort. But it's not just about joining the club. It's about overcoming that covert avoidance by engaging and initiating with people when we get there. So it's not just about showing up. It's about introducing ourselves and saying hello when we do show up. So something I want to touch on too, to help us initiate more, because I think people don't initiate because they often fear others are going to reject them. Others aren't going to like them. And the research finds that basically we overestimate our likelihood of being rejected by other people. There's this phenomenon in the psychology research, it's called the liking gap. And that basically means if two people interact and you ask the person, one of the people, how much do you think the other person likes you? In general, we underestimate how liked we are. And the more self-critical we are, the more pronounced this gap is. So takeaway is that in general, people like you more than you know. And there was a second study, and this study basically involved this researcher asking commuters, I want you to go up to another commuter and start a conversation with them. And then the researchers tracked the commuter's mood. And the researchers found that the commuters were happier when they had initiated this conversation, but they also found something else. Not one of these commuters were rejected when they tried to open up a conversation with another commuter. And so the researchers ultimately concluded commuters appeared to think that talking to a stranger posed a meaningful risk of social rejection. As far as we can tell, it posed no risk at all. That's right. None of the commuters were shot down when they initiated with another commuter. So I think what this research safely tells us is that we tend to underestimate the likelihood that someone will shoot us down when we initiate a new interaction with them. So this is my advice. And you can tell this to your kids or your clients or whoever you want to give advice to as to how to make friends. It's important to assume that people like you and want to talk to you. And this is the right mindset to have so that you'll actually find yourself going out there and initiating with other people. If you're afraid, if you think, oh my God, they're going to reject me, I get it. It is scary. But if you assume that, then you're never going to ask them in the first place. And in general, what we know from the research is that actually there's a good chance that they might be open to talking to you and connecting with you further. So make that your internal dialogue, your self-talk, to help you initiate and engage with other people. So then there's the question of, well, we know it's important to initiate, but how do we do it? And so there's this technique that I found that I really like when you're talking to strangers, and it's called the insight and question method. And so basically it involves, first we offer an insight, which is basically like a commentary on something that's happened. And then we ask a question to invite our conversation partner to talk to us. So if you were doing that during this webinar, that would look something like, wow, that study on talking to strangers during commutes was wild. I usually keep to myself on commutes. What's your commuting experience usually like? So it's the commentary and then the question. And then another insight and question method. we all went to UMD here, huh? How'd you like your experience here? And so I wanted to give you all a chance during this 3-minute breakout session to practice your own insight and question method with your interaction partner. And you can make up whatever situation you're in. You can pretend that, you're at a bar, you're at a networking event, you're at your place of worship, and you want to initiate conversation with a stranger. What do you say? How do you use the insight and question method to open up conversation?
And everyone should be asked to join your room now. So if you haven't already, go ahead and join your room, and we'll see you back here in 3 minutes. Marissa, I'm moving a couple people around just because not everyone has joined a room. So just making sure everyone has a partner. So I might give them an extra minute if that's okay with you. Oh, your mute is on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds good.
Great. Hi there, Nikita. Did you have a question for me?
Hi, no, I figured I could chat with you because my participant is commuting. So I don't have to, I wasn't sure how long this was going to be.
It's just another minute or two. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to make sure everyone has someone in their room. We kind of sprung it on you that you're going to have to go talk to someone.
Yeah. I think we're all accustomed to being passive in these Zoom meetings.
Absolutely. We're trying something new. We're trying to get people active in these. Yeah. Well, I do have to run though, because I want to make sure everyone gets to a breakout room, and yes. I'm going to bring everybody back together, but thanks for bringing me in.
You're welcome. See you soon.
See you soon.
Okay, I'm here. Did you have a question that you had thought of, or?
I figured.
Okay, I got pulled into a room. I'm going to bring everybody back now. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, bring everybody back. They have 60 seconds to all come back.
Awesome. I was going to just give them maybe a moment to put some of their insights and questions into the chat.
Great.
I don't know if I can see the chat while I'm presenting.
If you go to the top of your screen, it might pop down. I'm not sure.
Okay. I think I minimized it.
All right, welcome back to those who are coming back. I think people are wrapping up their conversations.
Welcome back, folks.
I can read the chat for you.
Oh, sure, yeah. So as folks are coming back, I'd love to hear some of your insights and questions that you came up with. So feel free to just add those into the chat.
Welcome back, everyone. Marissa was just saying, feel free to share a little bit in the chat about how that experience was for you.
And your insights and questions that you came up with.
Thank you.
Well, this is Janie. My question was just to say, hey, the insight I just picked up about making friends was interesting. And I asked the question, have you ever tried it, to Jessica. And so we did a little of that. And then I asked her about what her major was. And so we started talking about that and other schools and similarities and so forth. And even I mentioned going to Georgia State, which I see the presenter went to. So, you know, you just keep going. So, I mean, it worked as a way, an icebreaker and so forth. So it was easy enough. I just find for me, you know, keeping it going, what do you do to keep it going, which I'm sure we'll find out later.
Those are great ideas. I think, embedded in your question as some of your answers, found ways to leverage similarities between you and your interaction partner. And similarity is part of what builds connection. So I think that's a great way to continue on the conversation.
Marissa, we got a lot of great responses in the chat coming through. We have Michael saying it was surprisingly pleasant. We're glad you found it pleasant. We had some folks saying they bonded over sparkling water or seltzer, so they found common ground. Christine was asking if you'd be interested in discussing some of the myths and strategies in the context of COVID and social distancing. We have some people saying it was lovely, great to connect with someone from UMD. Tons of great stuff in here.
Pizza and crab cakes, very cool. All right, I'm glad you all enjoyed that. Let us return to the PowerPoint. Okay, so my second myth, and I'm going to try to incorporate some COVID-related tips too, per your feedback, is sharing things about yourself burdens other people. And so I think we often have a fear of vulnerability or of talking about ourselves. I've certainly had this fear. I mean, I'm a psychologist, so it's very easy to get people to talk about themselves and not have to talk about myself. But as I delved deep into the research on friendship, I realized that doing so was really shooting myself in the foot. And so this is a study, it's a meta-analysis, which basically integrates a number of different studies. And the findings of the study indicated that when people disclose more about themselves, people like them more, and people like others as a result of people having disclosed to them. So basically, when you're more vulnerable, when you share something about yourself, when you share some truths about yourself, people feel closer to you, people feel more connected to you, and people feel like you like them because you trusted them enough to share something from your own life. And so, I want to encourage folks to use this tip to be more vulnerable and intentional about sharing things about yourself with other people. So that's my next tip for making friends as an adult. Our first was to initiate, and our second is to disclose about ourselves. So this might look like, in practice, asking people questions that go beyond small talk. And, I think we often focus on maybe the weather or the news, but there's just so many questions you can ask to get to know people. And that requires you to, push yourself outside of the norm of how people talk and interact. But what will result from that is far more interesting conversations and feeling far more connected. So here are some questions that I have here. What's something new that you learned this week? Or what are you looking forward to? And I also just put sharing news about your life, because I think often throughout the day people might ask, like, what's new with you? And we might just answer something like, well, everything's fine, everything's good, when in reality, we're missing an opportunity to connect and offer some of that vulnerability, to share some more things about ourselves, like, I started this new show, or I read this awesome book, or I was able to talk to my mom today, and this is how she's doing. Like, being able to give people a greater window into our own lives, which will help them feel more connected to us. So we're going to break out again for 3 minutes, and I want you to choose one of these questions to talk about with your interaction partner. So tell us about your best friend and why you connect. What do you think makes someone a good friend, and what does friendship mean to you? So you can just pick any of these questions to start off your conversation.
Great, and all the rooms should be open now, so you should be heading back to hopefully a room with the same partner you were with before, and we'll see you in 3 minutes.
Maybe folks can still see the chat, right? If they're in their breakout groups.
That's a great question. Let me join one of the rooms, and I'll, if you want to chat something, I can check.
Yes, I'm going to share these questions.
Hi there. I'm actually not in a breakout room or assigned one, I don't think.
Oh, let me check. I'm sorry about that, Hannah.
No worries. I was commuting, so my last breakout didn't go so well.
Okay. I just assigned you, Hannah. You should be on your way to a new room.
Thank you.
There you go. Yeah, I just want to check every room to make sure no one's in a room by themselves.
Sure.
Fun.
Important work. So are these last 3 folks, are they part of,
There we go.
are they your coworkers? Are they working with you?
Say it again.
The last 3 folks that are still in the room with us?
I'm not sure. I think those are attendees who might be listening in, but not at their computer.
Oh, okay. I see.
Most likely. There we go. Okay. Just making sure everybody has a room. Yeah, I think often folks think when they're going to a webinar that they can put it on a screen and just hang out, but this one's super interactive.
Yeah.
And actually Jenny Kilberg, who's here, she works at Vsauce.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I saw her post on LinkedIn about this.
Yeah, I think she wanted to support.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
I miss Maryland. I was supposed to go back in March because I was going to speak in my advisor's class, but you know, then everything happened.
I know.
Yeah, sadly.
Hopefully next March you could try.
Yeah, hopefully next March. Yeah, that's a very realistic
I know. Trying to stay realistic here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Are you okay with me closing the rooms? I think usually people wait till the 60 seconds is up anyways.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. There we go. Got 60 seconds. What's fun about this too is I think about a teacher too. You could pop in on all the rooms.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah, I think everyone's excited about who they're talking to, so they wait. They wait till the room makes.
Awesome. You know,
It's
that's
like
the purpose of all this.
Agreed.
A moment of connection with someone else.
Agreed. All right, they got 10 seconds. They're coming on back. There we go. Everyone should be floating back in now.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back. All right, feel free to just type into the chat what that experience was like for you.
It felt very natural.
It felt natural. That's awesome.
That's so nice. We all did shots and agreed this virus sucks. Wow, y'all had fun in those 3 minutes. I enjoyed hearing about what my new friend enjoys about his best friend. Oh, it's so heartwarming. So something I wanted to mention, just to apply this to COVID times, is something that I've been thinking about as someone who studies connection, is that connection isn't just about us spending time with each other, it's about how we spend time with each other. And if we can spend time with each other in ways that allow us to more deeply reveal ourselves, then we're going to feel more connected. And so my advice based off of that is that next time you're having a Zoom chat with your friends and it feels like, what are we talking about? There's nothing new. This is awkward. Think about some interesting questions that you can raise to them, whether they're some of the questions we're going to be talking about today, or other questions like, what was your proudest moment? What's your dreams? What do you, what's your favorite thing about yourself? And that's a way to really frame the conversation, even over Zoom, in ways that help us connect more deeply. So another example of this is, it was my brother's birthday recently, and I knew we were going to have a chaotic call with 15 family members. 5 of them don't really know how to use Zoom. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to create a frame for this that allows us to connect more deeply and to navigate this conversation in the best possible way. And so I created a game called Stephen Trivia. That's my brother's name. And so I created 10 questions that were like kind of deep questions about Stephen, like, what does Stephen think is the meaning of life? And each of us responded in the chat our perception of what does Stephen think the meaning of life is. And then Stephen chose the best answer, and it was kind of like a game, but it also allowed for more vulnerability amongst Stephen. So it was really cool and really fun, and it was a success. So feel free to steal that if you want to find ways to feel more connected while you're doing all of these Zoom calls, to make them feel a little less stale and a little more connected. Cards Against Stephen. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so our third myth. When it comes to making friends with someone, either you click or you don't. I have been guilty of this in my own life, where I meet someone once and I'm like, snap judgment, are we going to be friends? Are we not going to be friends? Like, I can predict the future till the end of our relationship. And the truth is that friendship is an incremental process that happens over time. And one of the keys to friendship is exposure. So the more time we are exposed to one another, the more likely we are to make friends. And in the psychology literature, this is called the mere exposure effect. So in the beginning, we might interact with someone and it feels like we're interacting with a hyena. We can't trust them. We're suspicious. But then as we get to know them over time, it might feel like we're interacting with a puppy, and we feel close to them and we really love them. And so there's been some really interesting research about this. There was a study that involved a psychology class where a researcher basically planted these women into a psychology class. And there were 4 different women. One showed up for like 3 classes, another for 6, another for 12. One didn't show up at all. At the end of the semester, the researcher asked the students, which of these women do you like best? Most of the students don't even remember these women at all. But the researcher found that the woman who showed up most, the most amount of psychology classes, who didn't even talk to anyone, was liked the most, whereas the woman who didn't show up to any at all was liked the least. And so this is evidence of the mere exposure effect. The more we show up, the more people have time to interact with us, the more likely they are to like us and want to connect with us. And so there's another study on the mere exposure effect, which is quite interesting. This sociologist named Maddie Siegel, and she was working at a police academy, and she was trying to figure out, how do we predict who in this police academy is going to connect and who's not going to connect? And the answer she found was actually last names. Why last names? Well, your last name determines who you sit next to. And so when people sat next to each other because their last names are similar, they were a lot more likely to form friendship because they had more exposure to one another than when people had last names that were farther apart in the alphabet. And so I think we can really apply this research by thinking about, how do we continue to show up over time? Often we think about, when we go out there and make friends, let me go to this like one networking event or this one social event. But I think it's a lot more strategic of an approach to sign up for something that is repeating over time, preferably something that's weekly, because that's going to get you the most exposure with other people. So if you think of examples like, I don't know, joining a sports league, joining an improv class, joining a writing group, joining a gardening class, something that's continuous over time, instead of those sort of one-off networking events where it's going to be harder to connect because you don't have mere exposure. Other pieces of advice I'd offer: don't flake on invitations, because that decreases the level of exposure that you get to other people. And make friends with people you see every day. So are there people in your life that you see every day that you have not cultivated a friendship with? So this one example of this is like at work, right? I see coworkers every day, but I haven't necessarily formed a friendship with any of them. But it would be very strategic of me to form a friendship with my coworkers, because we already have that exposure embedded into our relationship. And so how do I do that? Well, you would have to initiate. You would have to say like, hey, I'd love to connect. Why don't we have coffee sometime? Or even, why don't we hang out outside of work one time? And so turning those everyday connections into friends is one easy way to turn your coworkers into your friends. Okay, so let's increase our exposure to one another. I have 3 questions here that we are going to break out and talk about. If you were famous for something, what would it be? Do you have a secret hunch about how you will die? For what in your life do you feel most grateful?
All right, breakout rooms are now open, so feel free to go ahead and chat with your buddy. I had a question come through via email, Marissa, about caveats to help introverts / homebodies for the exposure theory.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, and I am learning as we go. I found out a way to broadcast a message to everyone. So do you want me to type?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that would be great if you could type this question. How are we doing on time? 2:33. Good. I have one more.
Okay, for what in your life do you feel most grateful? Yeah.
Cool. What do you think, Illy? If you were famous for something, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking. That's a good question. I think it would be something like she saved a cat from a burning house or something. Because I tend to be one of those helping people. So I think that's what I would be famous for. Some type of not like heroic act, but just like being in the right place at the right time and making the right decision.
Oh, that's so nice.
What about you?
Well, hopefully friendship.
You're already famous.
But if I could think of something else, let me think. I always was good at ping pong, but now I feel like I'm like intermediate good. I don't know if I'm famous good. Maybe if I dedicated some serious time into my ping pong.
Oh my gosh. This is a personal question, but are you familiar with Colony Club? I know they have.
Yes, I love Colony Club. Pre-coronavirus. Yes. That's such a great idea to have a ping pong table.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Should I bring him back?
Sure, yeah.
There we go. 60 seconds. We have one more topic, you said, and one more breakout?
Yeah.
Great. We're doing great for time.
Awesome.
Okay.
Hey, everyone. As you come back to the room, feel free to share your experiences or reflections of that activity in the chat.
This is a joy. It's getting easier to talk to the partner.
Yeah, you're building a relationship already. It was too personal, got deep. Some people's fears are some people's sports. What is a sport? COVID has made us aware of how happy we are that our health is good and our finances are sound. Oh.
That was me.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing, folks. I learned that Ellie, if she was famous, it would be for doing something helpful and heroic to other people, like saving a cat from a tree. So I felt very impressed by that. Thank you for sharing, Ellie.
You're welcome. And Marissa shared that she might be the world's next ping pong champion. So watch out.
Okay, awesome. Let's continue. Okay, so my last myth. Being good at making friends is about being funny, smart, charismatic. So basically, I think a lot of us endorse the idea that making friends, our ability to make friends, being good at making friends is about who we are as people. It's about our traits, our qualities, whether we're attractive or appealing. But what I've come across in the research is that making friends is actually a lot more about how you treat other people. Whether you show people that you value them, that they matter. So things like empathy, for example, are related to your ability to make friends. And other things like affirmation, how much do you affirm other people? How much do you pour life into them, compliment them, tell you what you love about them? That's related to making friends as well. And so there's this theory called human affection exchange by Corey Floyd. I think he's at Arizona State University. And so basically what he did is that he gave people 2 packets of questionnaires. He said, give one of these questionnaires to someone in your life who's high in affirming others. Give another one of these questionnaires to someone in your life who's low in affirming others, who doesn't compliment others, who doesn't say nice things about others. And then he compared the psychological profile of the people that were high in affirmation and the people that were low in affirmation. And here's what he found. The high affirmation people were basically doing better than the low affirmation people on a number of positive outcomes, but specifically related to friendship and connection. High affirmers had fuller social calendars, were less isolated, were more likely to receive affection, and were more likely to be in romantic relationships. And so what we can take away from this research is really that if basically the old adage that making a friend is about being a friend, it's about how you treat other people, it's about treating other people positively and like you value them. And so we have our case study of our super connector here, Oprah Winfrey. And if you ever watch her interviews, she just finds so many ways to affirm other people. She has her aha moments where she goes, aha, you just told me something that makes me think, that is so insightful. And it's just like one of the many ways that she finds to affirm the people that she's interviewing. And so here I have a quote from her. The thread that runs through our human experience is that we all want to be validated. We want to be seen. We want to know we matter. And so the more that you can do that for other people, the better you'll be at making friends. So I'm now going to give you all a chance to affirm one another. And here are my 3 questions that you can use to affirm each other. Tell your interaction partner something you've liked about them. Tell your interaction partner a positive wish you have for them. Or tell your interaction partner something they said that will stick with you.
Great. Rooms are now open, so feel free to join.
Yay.
I love that everyone's going back to the same partner. So this
Yeah, so they really get to build that connection.
Mm-hmm.
I've saved over 395 cats.
I know. Are you catching up on the chat?
Yeah.
Sounds like Richard wants to challenge you to ping pong championship.
Something that I like and appreciate about you, Ellie, is I think you're super on top of things, which is really nice when you're giving a presentation to have someone who is, you know, on time, reliable, knows what they're doing, and it just makes this whole process a lot more smooth.
Oh, thank you. That's good to hear. I'm glad you feel that way.
Yeah, I totally do.
Let's see, something I wish for you. I really hope that you're able to make some great connections from this webinar today and kind of build your UMD network.
Oh, thank you so much. That would be really great.
Yeah, it sounds like this is the first time that you've been tapped into this specific network. So I hope that some great people to chat with after this. It seems like all the attendees are super excited about the content, and yeah, you'll have a chance to connect with people after this. So I'm excited for that for you.
Yes, that would be awesome. I appreciate that wish.
Yeah, of course.
It's always good to give back to my alma mater too. Makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
MD has gave a lot to me.
Yeah, we do a lot of different types of webinars, but of course the ones that do the best are the ones that are led by alum, you know.
Oh, cool.
From their fellow alumni, and, you know, hear their expertise over, honestly, anyone else. So.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. I am being fully transparent. I have not been doing the best at keeping the actual time. So
no worries.
I think I'm going to close out.
That sounds good.
There you go. I loved your idea for your brother's birthday. I definitely have been feeling that Zoom fatigue.
Yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
Gotta find ways to make it more interesting. And it was really fun, honestly. I mean, I beat my mom in Stephen Trivia. I won Stephen Trivia. I'm very proud of this.
Uh-oh.
Yes. And his other sister. So it was fun. It was healthy competition, and I think it was like also vulnerable in that, like, what you think says something. Your answer to the questions also said something about you, you know, like what you think Stephen's view on the meaning of life is probably more akin to your view on what the meaning of life is too. So
yeah.
Fun.
Very creative.
Yeah, thank you. We're doing another one. My birthday is on Monday, so now.
Oh my gosh! Happy early birthday!
Thank you.
Looks like everyone's coming back.
Hey everyone.
Oh, you said that your birthday was coming up?
Yeah, it's on Monday, so Marissa Trivia is coming up.
My birthday is on Wednesday.
Oh my gosh! Happy birthday!
Thank you. You too. And I'm taking off so I could go pick up free stuff.
Ooh, free stuff!
Happy birthday to both of you too.
Thank you.
I usually get a free smoothie from the smoothie cafe, and there's all these places that just give you random free treats. So I just go to the ones that I like.
Gotta look into that.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A is good too.
Chuck E. Cheese does that too.
Chuck E. Cheese.
They're not open right now, but this for next year.
So if folks just want to type into the chat what that experience was like of affirming one another, you're welcome to share. Okay. It was surprisingly heartfelt, even after a short bit of time when we've gotten to know each other, and we easily got sidetracked with other points of conversation about life. Oh, that is so nice. Yeah, it's so awesome how you can connect with each other so deeply in just a short amount of time. Okay, feel free to keep sharing. Another person, Jenny said, felt like I could better affirm the person I've known longer. Yeah, certainly. As we get more information about people, it's easier to figure out what we can affirm about them. All right, let's continue because we have about like 13 minutes left, it looks like. So just to review this 4-step model to making friends, I have a handy little acronym, the IDEA model: initiate, disclose, expose, affirm. And I want, I know we've debriefed throughout this, so I'll leave this question for later, but I want you also to think about how are you going to apply this information into your own life. You might have to get creative because, you know, we're in a pandemic and you can't connect in person in the same way, but you can invite people to virtual lunch. You can commit to seeing some of your friends more often, even on Zoom or on the phone. You can share more deeply when you do have chats with one another. And so if you could just type into the chat, what is something that you are going to take away and practice in your own life after learning a little bit more about how we make friends? I know initiation feels kind of hard right now since we can't really, it's harder to meet new people, but something that I like to suggest to folks is to wake up their sleepy relationships. So based on the friendship research, we know that most of our friendships actually end because we fall out of touch rather than because anything major went wrong for us. And so I think it's a great time to like rekindle old friendships with people you've loved and just fallen out of touch with and initiate interactions with them. Okay, and so now we're getting a little bit of folks sharing about how they're going to apply these exercises. I think I would use the insight question method. More neighbors are walking around the neighborhood and willing to chat. Okay, so you can chat with your neighbors a little bit more. I like adding the affirmation to conversations with people I meet. That's something that I will add into my life going forward. Oh, that's so lovely. I love finding ways to affirm one another. It makes people feel so good. It's so connected. Okay, so keep thinking about that. And I just wanted to share that if you want to learn more about the research, tips on how we connect, how to make friends, you can follow me on social media, Dr. Marissa G. Franco. I also just released a YouTube series. It's called The Connection School, and it's a 5-week series you can engage in with your friends to deepen your friendships based off of the science of friendship, like we've done here today. I also have a friendship newsletter. If you just go to my website, drmarissagfranco.com, you can find my newsletter. Every month I share helpful research. I'm really fascinated by the research, so anything that I'm fascinated by, I'll share in that monthly newsletter and help you continue to learn about how to build connections. So now, and I can also put those in the chat. Any questions or compliments? All right, so I have a few questions that were sent to me privately here. Marissa picked up a lot of good tips, not just about making friends, but a lot about how to make a Zoom class more engaging, and for the first time makes me think that we can make friends on Zoom. Aww. Another question, what's your puppy's name? This is not my puppy. I do have another dog here, but this is a different dog, but next webinar I'll show you Tuxedo, my dog. I got another question earlier. What do you do when you had a good interaction, but there's no follow-up? And my answer to that is you follow up. Don't wait for them to follow up. Just reach out to them and say like, oh, hey, it was really great to connect. And I was wondering if you wanted to chat sometime again. Or if you don't feel like you necessarily want to meet up immediately, you can also just check in with them. Like just text and say, hey, yeah, I was just thinking of you. How are you doing? Just wanted to check in. And it's those tiny behaviors, those maintenance behaviors that allow you to continue to build the relationship. Another question. That was wonderful, and even though I came late and couldn't engage cooking, I really enjoyed your content and general presence. Oh, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the affirmation from folks. When is your book coming out? Can't wait to read it. It will probably be a while. I have an agent for the book, but next we have to sell it to a publisher, and I'm kind of confused as to whether this is a good time to sell a book to a publisher, considering all that's going on. So it'll be more of a long run, but what I would suggest is that you sign up for my newsletter, because that's where you'll get all the updates on when my book comes out, and also things that I'll be doing in the meantime to share about the science of connection so that you can continue to learn and grow. Do you have any tips on how to keep conversations going after an introduction? This is so great, thank you. Yeah, I would say in your introduction, if you're able to have a conversation that brings out points of commonality, then after you follow up, you can mention those points of commonality, right? So when I was talking to a friend that I met, I'm doing a fellowship now, and I found out she liked horror movies. I was like, oh my gosh, did you see this horror movie? Or, oh, they opened this bar in DC that's focused on horror. Do you want to go? And so I think if you look in your initial conversation for ways that you're similar, then that gives you fodder to continue to check in about later on. Okay, another question. Any tips for initiating when you are pretty socially anxious, more fearful of rejection than the typical person? This is very helpful, thank you. Yeah, so what I would say for socially anxious folks is one way that has been found in the research to decrease your anxiety is to focus on the other person. So what happens when you're socially anxious is you kind of get in your own head and you're thinking a lot about the interaction. And so your goal in the interaction is now to just focus on the other person. And so that takes away the focus on yourself, that kind of clams you up. Another thing I would suggest with people who have social anxiety is therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy will be pretty helpful. And what cognitive behavioral therapy does is it helps you realize that the thoughts that you have about social interaction aren't necessarily true, right? So you can be able to say to yourself like, oh, I see that I'm thinking they don't like me or that they don't want to talk to me, but that's not necessarily the truth. That you can recognize that those are just thoughts, critical thoughts that you're having, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the other person actually feels that way. Because I think one takeaway we have from this conversation is actually we tend to misread how much people like us. We tend to misread how much they want to engage with us. And so being able to kind of watch those thoughts instead of letting those thoughts kind of control you and affect how you interact and engage will be really helpful. Okay. You mentioned making friends at work. Isn't that risky? What if they betray you for their advantage? Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly possible. There's really no way to prevent anyone from like taking advantage of you or exploiting you. But from what I know about the friendship, the research on making friends at work is that it produces all types of benefits for us and for our work. We're actually more productive when we make friends at work. We perform better. We're happier. There's actually a research study that found that people were less likely to die in a 7-year period when they had friends at work. So I actually think making friends at work is really central. But I also think that, there's different levels of friendship, right? If you feel uncomfortable or afraid of betrayal, you can still make friends. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're sharing your deepest, darkest secrets with them, but that means that they're people that you say hi to. How's it going? How's your weekend been? Let's have lunch together. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're friends with them, you have to disclose something to them that they can use against you. But it does mean that you're willing to engage with them, that you're interested in them, that you have positive regard for them. I feel like I'm talking really fast because I'm trying to get through all your questions, but I need to take a breath and slow down a little bit. Okay. Do you have any thoughts on topics that shouldn't be vulnerable about or share in initial relationship building? I have been in a conversation with people who overshare, and it can be awkward and make me feel on the spot. Do you have thoughts on this? How do we open up enough without being too much? Yeah, I see that. And what the research finds is that while vulnerability helps connection, when we overshare, when we share things about let's say like our psychological trauma in the first conversation, it actually doesn't build connection. And the reason is when we share with someone, they take that to mean that we trust them and that we like them. And these are positive messages to send to other people because then they like you more, right? There's this theory called inferred attraction, or the reciprocity of liking effect. And that basically means that people like people that like them. That's like the secret of getting people to like you, show that you like them. And when we overshare, the problem is that this backfires because when we're oversharing, it doesn't seem like our sharing is a symbol of how comfortable or close we feel to someone. It seems like our sharing is just like us dumping things onto people. And so I think there is a limit. I think, being vulnerable, I think it's always safe to share positive vulnerability, right? So I can share like, this is something that I was really proud of, or this is an accomplishment I had that was really great. And, this is what my dreams are. This is, all the positive things that are going into my life that, I might not necessarily share or be forthcoming about. Like those are ways to share and be vulnerable that are safe. You're still sharing things about yourself. You're revealing a little bit about yourself, but it's not anything that anyone can use against you. But I do think in general, what I say based on the research is that I think the average person probably shares too little compared to sharing too much. There are those of us that overshare, but I think in general, we overestimate oversharing, and a lot of us probably need to share like one notch above where we think we might be comfortable with. Okay. Compliment. Oh, you did a fantastic job of facilitating and training. I was prepared to listen and take some notes, but instead I have a new friend, Richard. Oh, that's so sweet. I love it. Okay, let's see. Thanks. Well timed. I wanted to continue connection with ladies that I was team leader to do for a short-term job, but wasn't certain because I didn't want to stay connected with everyone. Should I reconnect? So I think this question is, you had a short-term job, but I wasn't certain. I say always. My motto is, if I find someone that I like and I think I can stay connected to, that I like to connect to, I will reach out and say like, hey, let's find some time to hang out. Let's chat. So I definitely say go for it. It's 2:57, so I'm just going to take one more question. Again, feel free to reach out through my website if there's any other questions that I can answer. So
Marissa, can I jump in with a question?
Oh yeah, of course, Ellie.
I'm so sorry, but we did get one via email, and I want to I acknowledged that one, and I think it brings up a great point about introverts and homebodies. What is this experience like for them, and what advice do you have for someone who might not be as excited about the exposure theory?
Yeah, I get that. So one thing we know about introverts is that as introverts tend to not like, these crowded environments, these sort of concert halls or these networking events, but introverts tend to like smaller groups of meaningfully connected people. So if you're an introvert and that idea overwhelms you, what you can do is you can create a smaller group of people to interact with, like let's say 3 or 4 people, start a book club or start something like that. Like you can create the space that will be most comfortable for you. And hopefully some of the things that I shared about initiation will make that more likely. And another thing that I wanted to say is that as an introvert, you have special powers when it comes to making friends. You're probably really good at having deeper, more meaningful conversation that goes beyond small talk. And you're probably really good at listening to other people and allowing other people to be more vulnerable, which makes people feel really connected to you. And I would say like, the vulnerability is way that you can supercharge your connection so that you get closer even if you don't necessarily have the same amount of time. And so I would say lean on some of those things. If you feel like, asking a question, probing question because you're curious about someone, like ask those more meaningful questions because they're going to allow you to connect even if you're not necessarily seeing people as often because you need your time alone to recharge.
Great, thank you for addressing that one. And before we go, I wanted to ask, is there anything you wanted to say before I do a quick wrap up?
Oh, I forgot I was going to post my social media handle so people could see them.
I will, Marissa, that kind of jumps to my next point. I'm happy to share all that information via email. So I'll be sending out a recording of this video as well as all of Marissa's contact info. So if you have any other questions for her, feel free to contact her via her email address or any of the platforms that she had. And if it's okay, Marissa, we'd love to share the PowerPoint slides. I got a couple private messages about being able to view the PowerPoint slides.
Sure. And it was just really lovely to spend the time to connect with you all. I know making friends is hard, and I hope some of this advice makes it a little bit easier, and I'm just wishing you all the best.
Awesome. Well, huge thank you to Marissa, and huge thank you to everyone who participated for your vulnerability and your full participation in all of our breakout rooms. We hope everyone is staying healthy out there, and we look forward to chatting with you soon. So thanks again, Marissa, and go Terps.
Yay.
Bye, everyone.
Later.